I realize one thing we can't replicate at a time like this is congregational singing, and so I thought it might be helpful to present a second video today as a sort of psalm meditation. I don't want us to forget the Psalms at a time like this because really this is a time made for the Psalms. This is the time where the Psalms should be on our hearts more than ever. It's when we're anxious and afraid that we most need the Psalms. We see that as one's familiar with the Psalms, having sung the Psalms so much and knowing them and familiar with them. This is the time to take them to heart and put them to work in our lives. Those feelings of anxiety and distress that are so often expressed here in the Psalms, it's now that we're probably relating to those things more than ever, the panic, the fear that can easily overwhelm us. The Psalms give us direction, how to handle the distress, how to face our fears and grow in our faith. And so I want to just touch on three things to kind of encourage us to keep the Psalms before us here at this time, even if we can't sing them together as a congregation. Meditate on them at home, read them, sing them at home as you're able, whatever it takes, but keep the Psalms before you because the Psalms are a guide for us, especially in this present distress, to lead us forward. And we could point to a number of different Psalms that describe these things, but I'll just turn to Psalm 27 as one example and touch on a couple of things here. We remember the familiar opening of Psalm 27, "The Lord is my light and my salvation, whom shall I fear? The Lord is the stronghold of my life, of whom shall I be afraid?" And so it goes on to describe the source of that fear. There's enemies, there's an attack, there are threats to life, exactly what we're facing, threat to life, attacks, and yet there's confidence, and that confidence begins with remembering that God is on the throne. The Lord reigns. That's a familiar theme throughout the Psalter. The Lord reigns. He's on his throne. He's the king. And we need to hear that message right now. God rules. He rules the nations. He rules the peoples. He rules all creation. He's Lord of all. And we recognize that the reason for our worry, why we panic when these threats come upon us, is that we may say with our mouths or hold it as a doctrine that God is sovereign, he's in charge. But really, deep down in our hearts, we're fearful that he's not going to get it right. He might be sovereign, but is he really going to work out things the right way? We think we know better than God. We think we're wiser than God. There's a great illustration of this from the Reformation era in the relationship between Martin Luther and Philip Melanchthon. They worked together. Melanchthon was the younger protege of sorts, and he was one who was prone to worry. He was a worrier. And Luther's counsel to Melanchthon was, let not Philip sit on the throne. And it was a reminder to Philip that he's not the king. He's not the one in charge. The Lord rules. And his worry was linked to the fact that he thought he was the one who should be in charge and ruled things and knew better than God. And the Psalms remind us over and over again, comfort us in this knowledge. The Lord reigns. He's in charge. And we're secure in him. He's a refuge for his people. He's the stronghold. He's our fortress, our rock, because he's in charge. And he knows best when we're not wiser than him. So trust him. And that leads to a second thing, just here briefly, thinking about the message of the Psalms in times of anxiety and fear. We also learn from the Psalms that the Lord is the judge. He's the king and the judge. And if we again could point to many Psalms that remind us of God's judgment and the reckoning that comes upon all people. But we have to also remember in a special way, God judges his own. He tests his people. Psalm 11 puts it, he tests the righteous. And that's picked up in Psalm 27, where the prayer here of the psalmist is, teach me your way, O Lord. When there's this great distress and there's need for help, one of the lessons that the Psalms show us is that we're being tested by God. And so the prayer is offered here, teach me your way. Let me grow and learn from this present experience. And so the Psalms remind us that as God's people, as his righteous ones, as part of his fatherly care over us, he is trying our faith, testing our faith, refining our faith. The Lord disciplines the ones he loves, and that's the message of the Psalms. This is a time of testing, and so we should be asking ourselves, what's God want me to learn? How can I grow through this experience? What are the idols of my heart that he is exposing? Do I hold my personal peace and prosperity as an idol of the heart? Is my health my God? And how can this be a time for growth as God is testing us? Teach me your way. Help me to grow in my faith, to grow in my obedience through these present trials. And then that leads us to a final direction here of the Psalms. Seek my face. Psalm 27 puts it this way, you have said, seek my face. My heart says to you, your face, Lord, do I seek. Through the trials, God's calling us closer to himself. God wants us to pursue him, to find him as our greatest of joys. This present distress when we seem to be losing control of things in life, when our health and prosperity seem to be jeopardized severely right now, God's calling us to himself. Lasting joy, true contentment are only found in him. Seek my face. Seek my face. And so may this be a time that we make that our aim. Seek his face. May it be a time in which we pursue him in the Psalms. Spend extra time in the Psalms. Soak in this balm for our troubled souls. And so I hope these directions will be an encouragement to us. Don't forget the Psalms. Hold them dear, especially at this time.